Hello, I'm Rob with Crutchfield's Pro and Commercial Audio team, and today we're going to take a look at the DSP inside of the QSC's GXD series amplifiers. When I say DSP, I'm talking digital signal processing. There's a lot of really cool features that QSC has packed in here to make your installation significantly easier to handle and to tighten up your system with crossovers and EQs, all kinds of fun stuff. So let's get right into it. Right off the front panel, we can see what configuration we're in. It's currently listing it as preset 1 stereo, satellite, full range speakers. And what we're going to do is get in there and change that up just a little bit. If I hit the home button, it'll show us what the routing is set up so that we can get in here and see exactly. Channel 1 and 2 are going to a stereo DSP, as in whatever we do to channel A is also happening to channel B configuration before it goes to output A and B in our full range mode. So that gives us a really quick home key overview of what's going on in the current configuration. If we hit enter, now we're inside the menus and we can start playing around with stuff. One of the quick things we can do is jump into our presets. The presets, by hitting enter again, we want to go to preset recall. Oops, there we go. Preset recall. And now we're going to see all kinds of configurations. There's 20 different configurations preloaded in. None of them are specific to QSC brand speakers. They are all designed for any speaker that you want to add to the QSC amplifier. But we can see we've got a stereo, satellite, full range. This is the current configuration. If we rotate our B knob, this is going to give us the ability to change what preset, preset 5, preset 6, preset 8, etc. as we go up. And what I want to point out is some of the configuration sets. We've got satellite full range, satellite speakers with a 80 hertz high pass filter, a 90 hertz high pass filter, still with the stereo DSP, 100 hertz, a subwoofer with an 80 hertz low pass filter preset, 90 hertz, 100 hertz. Once we get above preset 7, now we're in preset 8, you can see we've got individual DSP that's unlinked. That means we can get in here and actually change what's happening with channel 1 and what's happening to channel 2 independently. This is set up for a monitor rig with a high pass filter at 60, at 80, at 90 or beyond here, 100, there we go, 100. Preset 11, now you can see up front there's a tiny little link between 1 and 2. Now we're running a input sum to mono configuration that is also going to 2 separate DSPs. This would be a great configuration if we're trying to run, in this case, a subwoofer and a full range speaker. We want to make sure that we get both the left and right channel audio going to both speakers, but we need to process the information going to the output differently. We want to put a crossover here. This is telling us a sub satellite 80 hertz. That means we have sub on channel A output, full range satellite speaker on B with a crossover at 80 hertz. If we go up to the preset 12, we get 90 hertz, we get 100 hertz. Get 1000 hertz, this would be a biamp input input sum. Getting both 1 and 2 summed down, DSP is processing it with a crossover, so we get the high frequency output going to the horn and a mid speaker getting everything below that 1000 hertz. So I don't want to go through every single configuration, but you get the idea. We have a lot of nice presets that give us some really good input and output routing and a screen that's going to show us exactly what's going on, how we're processing the signal, whether we're processing the signal individually, 1 to 1 or 1 to A, 2 to B, whether we're summing to mono before we process, or if we keep going up, we'll get a sum to mono with the stereo DSP. So what we're doing to one speaker output is also happening to the other output. Great for if you're using an amp to run a whole bunch of subs or a whole bunch of high mid speakers, but you want them all to do the same thing. We can do that stereo processing, make sure that both outputs are getting exactly the same configuration, exactly the same output. So for now, I'm going to go back to that preset 1 stereo input, but with stereo processing. So we're getting identical processing, but no summing. So the channel 1 input is still going to the A output, channel 2 is still going to the B output, but they're getting processed exactly the same. We hit enter to select that configuration. We confirm it. Now, amp is in that setup. If we need to go and change any of the settings, we can go back in here, and now we've got that stereo DSP. Presets was what we were just looking at up top. Next item down, stereo DSP. Jump in there, and now we've got all kinds of stuff that we can adjust. We can adjust our input sensitivity, our input gain. We can adjust the crossover settings, particularly important. Let's dig into that. You can see we can set a high pass filter, we can adjust the polarity, and we can set a low pass filter. So by combining a low and high pass, we can get a band pass filter out of it. High pass filter, right now it's bypassed. We can see our lowest frequency that we can do is 20 hertz, and it has a curve listed on the screen. You can see it as we go up. It's a fixed 6 dB slope. So we can adjust this high pass filter all the way up to 3,000 hertz, 4,000 hertz, I believe, as we get all the way up. Keep on going. So we have a nice wide range, 4K, that we can cut and do high pass only. Or we can bounce out of that, change our polarity. It's kind of a clever little literal plus and minus to change our polarity. Nice for tightening up your subwoofers or getting some weird phase cancellation out of your system. If we go to our low pass, we get the exact same frequencies, but in reverse. So our low pass starts at 4K, and we can tighten it all the way down to 20 hertz, going the other way. I'm not going to show you that. You get the idea. So we can get all of our settings. Now, this is in stereo processing mode, so wherever we set our crossover, that's going to be set for both output channels. If we get back into the presets, we can split that apart and do individual crossovers for channel 1 versus channel 2. We can do the input Y or input mono, sum to mono mode, and do individual processing or stereo processing. Very cool to have a handful of configurations that we can just dive into and get set up pretty quickly. EQ, there's a 4-band EQ loaded into this guy. We can go through and select individual points along the frequency spectrum, hitting enter, and now we can get in here and choose just how much gain we want to add or take out, what frequency we want to attenuate, and how the bandwidth, like how wide, the Q value of how broad we need that frequency cut to be. It's a pretty flexible 4-band EQ to have right in the DSP in your amp without having to worry about using your mixer to do that, having some outboard equalizers in front of your amplifier to do that. Saves you rack space, it saves you a lot of processing time on the front end when you have to actually adjust all your stuff on your mixer when you're moving from configuration to configuration. We've got delay, so in this case we can have one set of speakers you can set the input to the output. You can delay the output to give you, say you're in a house of worship and you've got speakers at the front of the room and you got speakers halfway down for the people in the back to be able to hear, but you don't want to muddy up the room by having those two out of phase, or out of time alignment rather, out of time alignment. There's processing in here, and if we go into that delay setting, we'll actually see as we adjust it, it'll tell you up top in feet or meters or milliseconds exactly how long you're delaying the signal to the output. So you can measure the distance from the front of the room to front set of speakers to the secondary set of speakers in feet or meters, dial that right up. If we're, say we've got two speakers that are 20 feet apart, we can go right in here, dial it right up to 20 feet. There we go. Well, darn close. 20.94 feet. And we can make sure that the signal to somebody standing in the back of the room, they're hearing those as if it's one unified sound coming from the front. Lowers acoustical interference in the room, tightens up your room, and makes it sound significantly better. Limiter built right in, so we can limit the output, protect your speakers, and that's all of our general processing going on inside of here. Bunch of utilities to be able to adjust things inside the unit. Gives you all kinds of information. You can get our status. We can see how long we've actually been running the amp, what kind of hours you've got on it, so you can keep track of that. You can set your contrast. You can set your timeouts to like shut off the front screen. You can lock the front screen. You can do all kinds of stuff, including, and what's most important to note in this particular menu, is a reset. So any settings that you've got currently set up, if you are setting up a brand new scenario, you need to make sure that this amp is not carrying any settings over from its previous installation. We get in here and we can go preset, turn to select, factory reset, hit enter. It's going to ask you, are you sure? Yes. Confirmed. Now we're back just the way we started, completely back to scratch. A ton of useful features, a ton of tools in here to save you time and save you processing power. Gives you some really nice tools to be able to tighten up your system, saves you rack space. It's not particularly heavy. It's a really, really good little amp to have. And of course, if you have any questions about any of this, you can always give us a call here at Crutchfield. Thank you for watching.